Hey guys, so today I will be talking about Susan M. Schneider, which is the person that I completed my behaviorist biography on. And this is a picture of her right here in the corner. So current practice, Susan Schneider is currently a visiting scholar at the University of the Pacific. She is also a senior scientist and sustainability consultant for Root Solutions, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on environmental behavior change. So she is an environmental activist, and she also conducts environmental studies. So just a brief summary of her research. So Schneider had a huge focus on nature versus nurture relationships in her research. That was a common pattern or a common trend that I've seen in a few of her works. She was always comparing the differences between nature and nurture and how they play a role in our behaviors. She also completed work concerning learning through reinforcement. So just like the picture you can see below is the types of reinforcement. So she used positive reinforcement and she looked at negative reinforcement. In addition to reinforcement, she did a great amount of her research on generalization. And generalization is when behavior change is applied to new settings, times, or behavior after that behavior was taught in an instructional setting. So basically what she did in her studies was take research that was used with human subjects, and she completed the studies with animals. So the animals that Schneider used in her studies were rats, pigeons, and quail neonates. And, she used these for just about all of her studies, or, she did a mix between both of them. But I didn't find any articles or any research with her using human participants. I've only seen ones with animals. But I thought it was very interesting, her studies. So, she used animals with the matching law. And so the matching law is when the rate of responding is equal to the rate of reinforcement when it comes to concurrent schedules. And so, she did a lot of generalization studies in that field and working, with that. And I'll talk more about that a little later as well. And so just a little fun fact, Schneider has over 30 research publications, and I thought that was so interesting. And I actually found her Vita, and it had like all of her courses that she taught, her speeches, her publications, her manuscripts, and so much more. Like, it had all that information on there. It was dated back from 1998. So I just thought it was really interesting to see all of her information like right in one spot, and like something that she actually made herself. And, I was really amazed that I found that. So next, her book and articles. So Schneider only has one published book, and this book actually took her 10 years to write, which is a really long time, but it was one of her greatest works. So I think the wait was pretty worth it. Just by looking at reviews of the book and, just things that people had to say, everything that I've seen was very positive, and it was very moving for a lot of people. So I'm pretty sure that, the length was worth the wait. Also, she completed a lot of research, so I'm just going to go through just a few articles right here. So an article she wrote about the history of behaviorism. So she focused on the history of radical behaviorism technically, and she compared Watson's and Skinner's uses of the term radical behaviorism. And, she just discussed how the term has evolved into its current use. And, she was looking at their definitions and, the differences in their definitions and looking at how it's used now. So in the next article, Choice in the Quail Neonate, the Origins of Generalized Matching. So she used quails to study generalized matching, and basically she investigated how they made choices, which was actually a very interesting article to read. So you guys should go check it out. I think this was one of her first research articles with using quails, and she usually used rats and pigeons, so it was interesting to see her use a different population. Yep. And so she was using generalization in that one. So another generalization study was the wasp nest and wolf packs. So basically in this article, she was examining how non-human social groups, which is what she called them, care for their children, and she she looked at their survival skills. So she looked at, how they searched for food and, how they mated and, found partners and things like that. And so that one was also an interesting read as well. So the last article right here is more work in positive reinforcement. So this one is where she reviewed the literature concerning the contiguity between responses and consequences. And, she just further expanded on the role of contiguity in, positive reinforcement and how it helps to maintain behavior. Now we come to the interview questions. So there are plenty of questions that I would ask Susan Schneider, but I've only narrowed it down to 5 because, that's what we could do. So first I would ask her, how did you become interested in your studies and what intrigued you the most about your research? I would also ask, how did people initially respond to your research? Were they open to it? Did they shut your ideas down? I would want her to just go through the process and just explain how things happened, and was it a positive experience or was it a negative experience? I just want to know how people responded to it, Another question that I would ask her is, what would you say is your greatest achievement concerning your studies? I think, in my personal opinion, that it would be her book, but to her, it could be all of her research. It can be one specific research article, but I want to get her opinion on that. I know she's pretty great overall. So, I'm curious to know what she would say to that. So next, I would say, you stated that your book took 10 years to write. What was your biggest challenge while you were writing it, and how did you get through it? So I know that writing books is a long process, and I just want to know, what held her back and, why it took so long to complete the book. And, I just want to know, how did she get through it? Did she have someone pushing her, you got to get this book out and we got to do it in a certain amount of time? So I was just wondering about that, and I would just want her to, explain that as well. And so the last question I would ask her is, what are your hopes for the future of science or behavior analysis in general? All right, importance to behavior analysis. So Susan is very much known for her focus on operant behavior, which is learning through consequences. And, her book has a variety of applications, so it can be applied to work settings, home settings such as parenting, and also education. And she even mentions politics in her book. So, her book is very broad. Like I was saying earlier, it's not just general or specific to one person. It can be applied to a lot of different people. And so she's also important for her research on the history of behavior analysis, such as her Skinner and Watson article. That was very big, and just her research on the history in general was actually very interesting and very well known. And lastly, she's very important for her studies of generalization and choice, which is the matching law applications. And so, she was one of the first people to apply the matching law to this population that she applied it to. And I thought that was really interesting when I read that about her. And overall, reading about Susan Schneider was very informative to me, and I really learned a lot. I really was interested in her works and her research, and I would look more into her in the future. So right here is just my works cited page. And, these are the publications that I talked about earlier. So if you guys want to go take a look and check them out, you can go right ahead. So that is the end of my presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and thank you for watching.